Hey, good evening. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. I'm just getting ready for bed actually, but wanted to make a couple of comments on what I've been looking at today. You might have seen that there are actually big changes. I mean, this is historically a time of enormous change because of what is happening at the moment. There's never been a worldwide lockdown, for one thing. There's never been such a panic on what is actually happening. They estimate that something like 100 million people have actually suffered because of the pandemic. So there's huge changes that are happening there, especially in America, especially in Germany actually. That they are Germany and the UK are actually protesting the lockdown as such a huge nationwide overall 100% solution to what they're calling a pandemic, but I think probably isn't. Now, for those who argue that yes, this is real, of course it's real. You know, this virus is real. Is it killing people? Yes, it is. And nobody, I don't think that anybody with a pulse is trying to argue against that. What's being argued against is the fact that more damage can be seen to be being done by the solution than by the virus itself. And that's what's causing so much of the conflict. That the whole world economically has been brought to its knees, and as a solution to a virus that, to me at least, in my humble opinion, doesn't seem to be a solution at all. So in exactly the same way that we have in the past talked to someone who admits that, says, listen, don't come near me, I think I'm coming down with the flu. He didn't rush off to the house and lock the doors and refuse to come out for 14 days. Now, even allowing for the fact that the COVID is worse than the ordinary flu, doesn't actually seem to warrant, and this is confirmed. This is confirmed by many people who are on the science side of the community, the worldwide community, and yet here we are locking down the entire world, and that doesn't seem to make any sense to me. So there's a lot of change going on that. There's also a lot of change going on because of privacy, because of 5G, because of face recognition in China, which China supposedly right now is able to face recognize so many people. And it's beyond dispute that all of what we put on Facebook, on the internet, all of that is all being stored. Now, are we going to assume that the government or these private enterprises will not use that information? Well, I think that would be very naive to do that. And that's my opinion. Now, the idea that the chip is going to come in and save such a lot of problem, it's a lovely idea, isn't it? If everything is just completely trustworthy and there's no issues about privacy or civil rights or any of that, it seems like a great idea, doesn't it? You have a chip the chip contains all the information, say all of your medical information, and you can go in, you sit in front of the doctor, and even as you're taking your seat, the chip is transmitting onto the doctor's computer exactly what your history is, and he can read the whole thing. It sounds like such a great idea, doesn't it? And then there's the I saw a video very recently on YouTube which showed a company in America that they had decided that they would start to chip their employees. They talked about the idea to the employees, and the employees said, well, it sounds great. Why? Because it meant that they wouldn't need to carry keys in order to be able to gain entry into their particular part of the building. If they needed anything from the kiosk, they could go and they could pass their hand over the thing, literally like that, and they could have whatever they wanted, and it would be billed to their account. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Now, once again, if you are totally trustworthy, the idea of a cashless society must seem really good. When I went to, a couple of years ago, I went and I had a visit with my son in the UK, and when I got there, that was as close to a cashless society as I've ever been, because my son very kindly, in order not just as a convenience to me, but in order to show me how convenient everything really is when you have the cards. I had a card for shopping, I had a card for travel. Now here's what I thought was the scary thing, but maybe I'm being paranoid. I don't think so. But the card went into my wallet. Now it's in there, and it's in there with some other cards. I don't have a credit card. I really don't agree with a credit card, because it sends you it very, very quickly sucks you into debt, and then you will end up, unless you are an incredibly disciplined, strong person, you will end up paying minimum payments. Minimum payments on something like a $5,000 balance will end up as tens of thousands of money owed over a very long period of time. 20-25 years is not unusual. If you just keep paying $1 or something, or if you just pay the minimum amount. Most people think that when they pay the minimum amount, the credit card company, in their wisdom and in their benign generosity, have worked out what you need to pay in order to service your debt. In other words, in order to pay something off the debt. That's what people assume they're doing. Well, I'm not paying much off my debt, but I'm servicing the debt. I'm paying the interest that's needed in order for me to not have to pay the entire amount back again, and I'm paying a little off. And I think probably that it doesn't actually work out that way. So I don't have a credit card, but put that card into the other card for, say, travel. Now, London, which is where I was staying, is wonderful for public transport, and it really is. You can do without a car and live in central London, and you can do without a car. I just hope it doesn't rain, because if it rains and you get wet, you will be freezing cold. That's the nature of weather in the UK. But it means that you can get on a bus, and you actually don't need to take the card out of your wallet. You can take the wallet in the hand like this and simply pass it over the little sensor that's going to read that card without taking it from your wallet. Now this has obviously brought in certain scams and thefts and clever people who know how to utilize these things in computer speak, and they can come and one thing that I saw was if you're expecting a call and you went into a bar and you sat at the bar and you had a drink and you took your telephone. But if you look now, I got my telephone out here and I'm charging it. So if I were not charging it, supposing I was putting it on the bar, and it's on the bar there, so there it is on the bar, and somebody comes up and sits next to me and they put their phone on the bar and they put it next to yours, and they can transfer all of the data that's on your phone to their phone. Well, what kind of data might you have? Well, certainly a lot of people keep all of their passwords on their telephone and they have it tucked away somewhere in there. It can be untucked away, can't it, by someone who's clever. We are incredibly trusting, that's for sure. I actually saw one program where a person was talking how easy it is to be able to steal someone's identity. Imagine you want another identity, and you can have a perfectly legal identity. You can go and you can find a person that died at birth. But you can go and you can have a birth certificate in that person's name. Now, you come up, and if the person, you're going to find somebody who died that much time ago, that they would not look like you, but your age. So you bring the age up to present time, and then you go in with the birth certificate, which is perfectly genuine, a real birth certificate of a real person from one time, and you put your photograph on it. And so now you're going and you have a totally legal document, like not a driver's license, but some form of identification which would be real, and it would have your picture on it. So there were many, many different ways that this could all turn against us. Right? Now, the other thing I wanted to touch on was something that is now changing. All of this is changing, isn't it? The cashless society, the chip, where every little piece of information about you is on the chip, and it's all there for anyone who has the right receiving equipment to be able to read that. But there was a program that I watched very recently, 60 Minutes. It's an Australian made-for-TV program, very, very popular, long-standing. I think it's been going for many years, and they do investigative journalism. They do human interest stories. They do all kinds of different, greatly interesting and informative stories. And one that they've recently done was on the experiences of two celebrities in Australia. One, he is now the former, as a result of what I'm about to discuss with you, he is the former coach of the Broncos. Now, I know nothing about spectator sports. It's just not my thing. I love to do sports. I like cycling and swimming and walking. Never got into jogging, but I love walking. I did in my younger days. I did karate, kung fu. Was never brilliant at it, unlike my son Paul. But anyway, all of this is now coming out, that this coach was trolled on Facebook and other of the social media to such a vicious extent that it started to impact his family, and he considered that it simply wasn't worth it. So he took himself off high profile, he gave up his job as a coach, and he sort of retired from public life. Now, he wasn't satisfied with just giving up, so what he did was he hired a private cybercrime investigation unit, investigators who specialized in investigating cybercrime, and their brief from him, fortunately, as he had been employed at such a high level, had the money to do this. So not everybody would have the money to do this at the moment. As always, it's the pioneers who pay the very heavy prices, but everybody else that comes up afterwards, they start to see how things can be done cheaply. So they investigated where all of this poisonous defamation was coming. This was all unfounded. They accused him of all kinds of things, doing drugs, doing extramarital affairs, not just with anybody, but to make it even more poisonous, they'd made it so that he was being accused, only accused. Nothing was proven because it wasn't true. So he was being accused of having affairs with the wives of some of his players, especially damaging to his integrity and his good reputation. So he gave up. As I said, he gave up, but he then put his money where his mouth was and said, this is not right, and I'm going to find out who this person is. Actually, he ended up, during the program, saying that he had several names. Now here's the thing, as with all of these things when they come up at first, it's not going to be a total package. So sometimes you're going to end up with information which you can't actually use at that moment in time. But here's the other thing. Whenever you see that someone is accused of certain crimes and the police arrive at their house, what do you see them carrying out? Well, of course, you see them carrying their computer out. Now, what's the latest in America which is causing a great stir? And that is the son of Biden, Joe, Sleepy Joe as he's called, the son has now had his laptop taken, captured. It's somebody has it in their possession. They don't need to keep the laptop because they can just simply put everything else onto another, can't they? They can put everything onto a card, onto a memory stick, they can just take it all, but it shows some apparently very incriminating stuff that's on there. Now, the other person that was on the 60-minute show, she was also of the mind that trolls need to be put in prison. That was her thing. They need to be imprisoned for what they're doing, because what they're doing is defamation. It is slander, defamation. But it's not just that, it has an immediacy which damages the reputation of whoever is being stuck. That old thing of, if you throw enough mud, some of it will stick. But here's the other side of that quote, is that if you handle enough mud, you will get dirt on your hands. Isn't it one where they can tell whether you've fired a gun by doing a forensic test on your fingers, and you will have something on your fingers which cannot be washed by just getting soap. So it takes time for it to go. So the thing is, you are leaving an imprint. You're leaving an imprint, footprint, fingerprint, whatever it is there. And this is true of the computer. So it's really very funny that a sense of irony here is that as the people who do this tremendous damage, and the other person that was suffering from this was a TV presenter, a lady, right? Beautiful lady, and a talented, popular celebrity, and she was being hounded by trolls who were doing exactly the same thing, making unfounded, unprovable statements about her which defamed her and were terribly destructive and offensive, especially about her child, wishing that she would have a stillborn child and other unspeakably evil things. And she is now in a position where she will be able to push for other programs about that, about the troll situation. So what's happening is it's coming to a head. The defamation, the cybercrimes. Now a cybercrimes unit within a country is a very real unit. All the time, make no mistake, all the time, skills are being added through experience. There was a little time ago that President Duterte won something against a radio show, and he won his case against them. There was another where an actress had left a job, left a contract, and just walked away from it. She'd had words with her employer. She ran off and went back home to Manila, and then did no more than start to badmouth the man who had employed her, who she had broken a contract with. She was actually arrested. She was arrested and taken into custody. Now, how that all panned out, I'm really not sure. Probably they would have done it all. But the indicators as these things progress shows that it's becoming less and less possible to just mouth off and talk about someone simply because you think you're able to hide behind a username. So eventually, as I've said before, my own take on it is that even those who allow the platform, who provide the platform for these comments, will be held accountable too. Just like if you steal something, then you are the thief and you are guilty of the crime. But if you sell it to someone who buys it knowing that it's stolen, he is then guilty of receiving, and he is an accomplice. And the police mostly treat the one who buys the stolen goods with greater severity than the person who stole it. Because if nobody bought these things, then there will be little point in stealing in a lot of cases. So all of that is all coming to a head, and what will eventually happen, I believe, is that you will not be able to go onto something like Facebook or Twitter or one of the others and be fictitious, or not fictitious, anonymous. Right. Whenever anybody is anonymous, they are non-accountable. They're not accountable. Now, in the law, as far as I remember reading, in the Philippines, supposedly they are not supposed to entertain an anonymous complaint. So someone cannot anonymously say, he did this, she did that. So even that is tightening up, and what's happening is it's getting tighter. At one time, China or Taiwan or Thailand, they could steal any intellectual property, any ideas, they could steal them and put them into their own designs, and there was no recourse for action. But now things are tightening up on that, and the theft of intellectual property is becoming a serious thing, and it's becoming enforceable worldwide. Whether it's totally that way is another thing, but it will get there. In other words, there'll be nowhere that people can hide. Nowhere they can hide. I look forward to that, because I'm not anonymous on my channel. I'm complete. You can see my email, probably even my phone number is there somewhere, and my address. Simple as it is, not hard even to memorize my address, but all of that is open. I am in the open, so I stand by what I say, because, well, everybody knows where to find me. So, big changes, and some of it good and some of it not so good, but nevertheless, big changes coming. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye for now.